Hello there! And welcome back to another video! This week I'm going to be trying out an iPad app that a YouTuber that I watch all the time developed. His name is Borodante, and he's one of the reasons why I decided to get my iPad Pro to paint on in the first place, because I'd been thinking about it quite seriously to begin with, but then he started using it, and he's actually a huge inspiration for me in terms of digital art. So I've been following his tips for like 2-3 years now. So when he started like seriously drawing on the iPad, I really did consider it a lot more of a viable tool. And then all of a sudden he took like 2-3 months without posting any videos, and I was like, oh no, where did he go? I really did miss watching his content. And then he comes back saying that he was working on developing an iPad drawing app, and I was just like, oh, take my money. So as soon as he like announced it, I was like stalking the App Store trying to download it, and eventually I got to download it. I couldn't download it at first because I hadn't updated my iPad to the latest iOS, and it's for the latest iOS obviously, so I had to update my iPad before I was able to find it on the App Store. But once I did, I was like really excited to dive into it. The biggest thing about this app that Borodante was trying to do was he was trying to make it like a super optimized for speed painting sort of thing. So he's really changed a lot of the kind of mechanics that have been established in iPad apps for digital painting. So one of the biggest changes is that instead of tapping with 2 fingers to undo, you have to swipe with 1 finger to the left, which to me makes a lot of sense, because like to move back you go left. So if I'm in my browser, for example, I swipe left to go back to the previous page, and then to redo you swipe right. So that was a really like nice change that I think makes it a lot easier, and it doesn't break the immersion so much for when you're painting with like Procreate or Art Studio Pro, because like the tapping with 2 fingers means you have to like kind of maneuver the pencil in your hand so that you have access to tap with it with 2 fingers, and to redo to tap with 3 fingers and stuff like that. The other big change is that the thumb bar is not like the brush control size thing, is not in this like this individual little window. It's like this entire section on the side of the screen that you'll see come like up and like hide every now and then. It's like in this part of the screen, and you can like touch on it and like at any time, and then just drag up or drag down to relatively change your brush size. And you can do that while you're drawing, so you can change the brush size while you're like doing strokes with it. And it's also, I like it a lot more because it doesn't matter if you're holding your iPad like at the top or at the bottom. It doesn't have to be in the middle, and it's like around a little over 1 centimeter in width, so you don't have to like touch this super tiny little scroller bar thing. So to me that is also something I really enjoy about this drawing app. Another thing is that there's no menus on the sides. If you swipe up, you get the entire control panel with like your brush settings, your color picker and all those things. So it's like a lot more streamlined. And then my absolute favorite part of like this change that is different from all like drawing apps is that to use your eyedropper to like eyedrop a color that's already on your canvas, you just hold your thumb over the thumb bar, and then with your Apple Pencil you click the color you want to eyedropper. And it's just a regular tap. You don't have to, because in Procreate and Art Studio Pro, to eyedropper a color you have to be like tapping on the color you want to for like 2-3 seconds, and then it realizes, oh, you want to eyedropper, so it lets you eyedropper. But with this, you just tap with your thumb and then tap on the color, and then you have it, which is a lot more similar to how it works in Photoshop. Because in Photoshop, if you have your brush tool activated and you hold the Alt or Option if you're on Mac, Alt if you're on Windows, if you hold your Option key, it switches to the eyedropper. So then you click your color, then you let go of the Option key, and you just go back to the brush. And it makes it super easy, especially when you're doing like an overpainted style thing, to just like tap, eyedropper, repaint, tap, eyedropper, repaint sort of thing. And it's like super intuitive. And it used to be sort of an interruption to me in Art Studio Pro or in Procreate, where you had to like just tap for a longer period of time with 1 finger to get it to eyedropper. And so in my settings in Art Studio Pro, I turned down the amount of time that it takes for it to recognize that you're eyedroppering it. But then there's another thing where the time that it takes to eyedropper is so small that I accidentally eyedropper things that I didn't mean to eyedropper. So that's kind of like annoying, and Procreate doesn't, I don't if it does let you customize that, which I imagine it would because it's Procreate, but I haven't really found it. And then there's the other thing that this app has that Procreate doesn't have, but Art Studio Pro has, which I like, is that when you're working with the pencil, you can't draw with your finger. So that's another thing that really bothers me about Procreate, is that you can't make it so you only draw with the pencil instead of with your finger. So a lot of the times it's just random little dots and marks on my canvas in Procreate, because I try to like tap on the screen with my finger to try to like do a shortcut or whatever, and it just like registers as a painting mark, even though I'm working with my finger and not the pencil. So that's something that I really like about Art Studio Pro, and that this app also has, where if you have a pencil, you're only drawing with the pencil, which makes it a lot better for me. There's a couple of things that I didn't quite enjoy so much about this, but I think that they're mostly just because it's really early stages in this app. I think there's only been like one update since it came out, and I know that Borodante's working on the update following that, and so, but they're just like, they're kind of little fixes that need to happen, like the blender sometimes just blends too much or blends too little, and it's kind of hard to predict and control, but I think that's just more of a me problem. Another thing that I kept wanting to do is that when you swipe up to get your menus, a lot of the times I was trying to tap like where you can see your painting behind the menus to try to bring them back down, but the only way that the menus are going to go back down is if you swipe back up again or back down, or I don't remember. See, like I didn't really register, but it wouldn't let you go back to your piece from just tapping back on your piece through your menu pieces. So that was kind of a little bit of an inconvenience. Another little bit of an inconvenience was that there's a couple different like brush presets. So there's the brush dry, brush wet, the blender, the pencil, and the liner. And I would sometimes tweak the settings a little bit. The tweaker that I do the most is I reduce the minimum brush size so that I have some pressure sensitivity in regards to the size of my stroke. And I know that Borodante doesn't like to do that in his paintings. He's explained it before that you can like get a more painterly, a better render if you just manipulate with pressure the opacity or the flow of your brush. So by default he makes it so your brushes don't like decrease in size with your pressure, but I like my brushes to decrease in size with my pressure, so I change the settings to do that. But then if I switch between the brush dry to the brush wet, and when I go back to the brush dry, then the settings are back to the presets, which are useful in some cases when I like tweak some settings that I didn't mean to tweak, but at other times, like with the brush size thing, it ended up being an inconvenience. So I thought it would have been like more useful if there were like an option to return your brushes to default, but besides that, if you're like going between different brushes, the settings stay the same. So, and then obviously the last thing that was kind of a big like boo-boo for someone like me was that there isn't like a layers option just yet, and I know that Boro's working on it, or I assume that Boro's working on it, but even just having like two separate layers, one for like a sketch and one for painting, would like really help me out, because I'm the kind of person that I abuse layers to no avail. Like I'm a real big use as many layers as possible kind of person. So I'm decent enough at doing like one layer type stuff. Like I'm not completely useless. Obviously I've been doing this whole painting process without it, and it was a really interesting experiment. I also have a video on my channel where I did a one layer challenge, but that was in Photoshop, so I had a lot of other tips and tricks that I could do to like circumvent the fact that I didn't have layers, like using stuff on multiply, having like gradients and buckets and like brushes set to like different modes that helped me keep my lines until I didn't need my lines anymore. But I didn't have any of those things for this app. So I love the like ease of use kinds of things that were implemented, especially like the eyedropper thing and the undo redo sort of thing. But having the layers, at least two layers, one for sketching, one for color, would like completely save my life. And obviously there's other things like doing transform tool and move tool and stuff like that would be nice, but you know, Boro learned to code in a month to produce this app, so I'm not really hoping. Like I feel like in the future I would enjoy more like importing a sketch, or maybe importing something that's like sketched and already has some like base tones to it colored in, or maybe even just taking a picture of something in my sketchbook and like painting it in this app. I feel like would work really well. And just moving forward, I'm really excited for like the kinds of updates that Borodante is going to make. Just a quick thing about the portrait, I decided to keep it simple because I was just trying to figure out the app. I really like the blender brush, the way that it helped me, just because I picked like 2 skin tones and the rest of it was just blender brush with the background, and I don't know, I really like the way that these skin tones came out. But yeah, I just really like this app. Download it if you have an iPad and you like painting. Here is a second drawing that I did, well, just a couple of color tweaks, because I thought, like, yeah, anyway. But yeah, let me know what you think. Download this app if you like it. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next week.